Babe, I've been thinking about our future. Girl, you make me feel things I can't explain. When I look into your eyes, I go insane. I wanna give you everything, the moon, the stars. I wanna build a life with you, whatever that costs. And baby, I've been thinking about what we could make. A little piece of you and me, for heaven's sake. We don't need to think it through. We're young and we're in love. Let's make a brand new person, just because. Let's make a life slave, baby. Ooh. Neither of us will ask it if it's okay. Let's make a life slave, darling, just for us. Someone to carry our name into the dust. We won't think about the cost. No, no, no. We'll think about the world we'll bring them into. Baby, let's just feel good tonight and make somebody's involuntary life. I'll buy the little onesies, you'll pick the name. We'll post it on the internet for the likes and the fame. The baby shower's gonna be so beautiful and sweet. We'll celebrate the sentence of the soul we're gonna keep. And sure the world is burning, sure the system's rigged, sure we can barely pay our rent, but let's have a kid. We'll figure out the details, we'll figure out the cause. The important thing is how it feels right now. To us, make a life slave, baby. Neither of us will ask it if it's okay. Let's make a life slave, darling, just for us. Someone to carry our name into the dust. We won't think about the cost. No, no, no. We'll think about the world we'll bring them into. Baby, let's just feel good tonight and make somebody's involuntary life. We'll tell them that we wanted them so badly, oh so much. We'll tell them it was love that made us lose our touch. With reason, with responsibility, with everything we knew. We'll tell them it was beautiful what we put them through. They'll thank us for the gift, baby. They won't. They'll say it was a blessing. They might not. We'll feel so complete, so whole, so fulfilled while they figure out the bill. Let's make a life slave, baby. Neither of us will ask it if it's okay. Let's make a life slave, darling, yours and mine. A little taxpayer for the state's design. We won't think about the cost. No, no, no. We'll think about the world we'll bring them into. Baby, let's just feel good. Feel good tonight. Feel good tonight. Involuntary life. I love you so much, baby. Let's not think. Let's just feel. You'll be fine. Probably. We'll figure it out. Won't we?
Hi, everybody. This is a warning. I do have some congestion issues, so I may sound nasally. I'm going to be getting my surgeries pretty soon, so hopefully that will fix the problem in the future. I just came upon this new term, which I had never heard, but somebody on my channel, which I can't remember his screen name, he used the term life simp, which I found very interesting. Um, I don't know if you all know what the word simp actually means, but I guess I'll spare you that. But yeah, simp has been used in a way that is completely different from its original meaning. But I'll just go with the colloquial term, the way people use it now. So let's start out with the relationship. People do have a very strange relationship to existence and to life, or the will to life more specifically. It is an unrequited love. They pour their time, their money, their emotional investment into this phantom partner which gives nothing back. This partner is at best inconsistent and at worst cruel. Some days this partner may give you a laugh, maybe some fleeting sense of joy. But most days, it's just maintenance. It's just bills, backaches, disappointment. And when this partner is done extracted from you, is going to discard you and move on to the next victim. And yet, for whatever reason, human beings are so devoted to this partner who doesn't seem to actually give a shit about them. Now, we all know that we deserve better. We deserve to be treated better, but for whatever reason, we're so willing to accept the crumbs, to be grateful, to just continue the cycle. And this partner is existence itself. Author Schopenhauer described in his book, The Will and Its Representation, an energy force called the will to live, or actually, it's the will to life, which is a blind, irrational, insatiable drive that doesn't care about your happiness or in your continuation. And so, for whatever reason, people are addicted to life. They are invested in its continuation, even though it doesn't necessarily benefit them. They idolize the mediocre. They romanticize the potential for life and what life could be. And you'll hear these people, they even come on my channel talking about what about progress? What about the future? How things are going to eventually get better, but it never actually gets there. They'll talk about technology, AI. Never mind the fact that civilization has been striving to get to this utopia since time immemorial, and every generation seems to think that it has it figured out. But in the meantime, everybody else is supposed to be sacrificed. You're supposed to endure a shitty job, heartbreak, the death of your loved ones, your declining health, and you have to maintain your life for whatever reason to benefit everybody else. And then you're also supposed to perpetuate the same cycle so that the next generation can also go through the same hardships. Now, they say it's a gift. It's a gift that offers nothing, but beyond the potential to suffer and die. That those are guarantees. Yes, you can work to overcome it. Maybe you can prolong your life. Maybe you can minimize your suffering by, I don't know, getting a job, going to school like I did, getting massive student loans, and then it still turns out to be fruitless. Who cares? Who cares? They gambled. Now you're stuck with this life. Now you're going to live 80 plus years if you actually live your natural lifespan. Now you're stuck. So now it's a sulking cost. You're already here. All you can do is continue pouring into this bad investment. An investment that you never chose in the first place, but for whatever reason, your parents chose to do it. So now you're stuck with it. So you may as well, I don't know, maybe you should just get over yourself and just focus on helping other people. And then perpetuate the cycle so the next generation can do the same thing. Everybody's tethered to each other. Your individual suffering doesn't matter. You need to focus on the next person. Meanwhile, you should ignore all the red flags. You should ignore the systemic problems, the lack of jobs, the fact that AI is going to be replacing us, the housing crisis, The gas prices, which are through the roof, and they seem to ebb and flow. The unstable job market, the unstable political backdrop, because just with a slight shift in the Supreme Court composition, well, you may actually lose your rights. You may get a president who imposes tariffs which prevent you from even starting a business. And you have no control over any of this stuff. You're just supposed to just go along with it. It's not as if you have real autonomy over your own life. No, you don't. So you just keep moving the goalposts. Everything that they said life was supposed to promise, well, it's a lie, but I guess you can continue being future faked. You can continue with this optimism bias and just hope for the best that things will eventually get better. Everything happens for a reason. You're eventually going to get a promotion. You're eventually going to get a big house. You're going to get the car that you have aspired to get, and then you'll eventually be happy. Or maybe you'll find love. Maybe you'll find this partner who will complete you. Now, we all know that this is bullshit. We all know that, well, happiness is always fleeting. It can't be satiated. You have to chase the next thrill. You get the partner, well, they disappoint you. They cheat on you. Well, I don't believe in cheating. So let me just get that out the way. I don't believe in monogamy, but for those of you who actually do get your feelings hurt when somebody quote unquote cheats on you, you do actually get your feelings hurt. So I don't know. But let's just say they disappoint you in other ways. They're just not who they presented themselves to be. You get the job, you thought that was going to make you happy, and then once you got it, well, now they want to make you work 80 to 100 hours per week. Now you're miserable. Yeah, you're making good money, but the costs are not balancing out. They want you to make so many sacrifices. Now you can't have any type of personal life. But for whatever reason, you keep doing it because you think there's hope in the future. Somewhere down the pipeline, things will get better. So you just keep on simping, keep on giving into the will to life. Despite all your anxiety, the labor, you're going to be loyal to existence, even though existence is not loyal to you. You're going to be loyal to society, to civilization, all these institutions, never putting your own well being first. You're just a cog in the machine. You don't matter. What matters is the continuity of, I guess, the human species. And if you subscribe to this belief, for all intents and purposes, you are a life simp. Um, I guess I don't know if people even know what simp means because it's been used so much, but simp originally meant suckers idolizing mediocre pussy. Um, I don't know what you would call me. How we change that? A simp with a D at the end. I don't know. A simp, sucker idolizing mediocre dick. I don't know. But it really has nothing to do with sex or idolizing a man or a woman. I think that's not how it's used anymore. It just basically means someone who settles for something that is mediocre. Now, I have a quote from Schopenhauer. He says, "We are like lambs in a field, disporting themselves under the eye of the butcher, who chooses out first one and then another for his prey. So it is that in a good day, we are all unconscious of the evil fate may have in store for us: sickness, poverty, mutilation, and loss of sight or reason. But we don't see the butcher because we're too busy enjoying the grass." We're just so, I mean, that's the reason why sheep have to be protected, because they're so vulnerable. I mean, I think sheep are, I don't even know what their natural defenses are. It almost seems like they don't have any. I don't know. They're not even aggressive like cows. Like, the male will actually protect the females, the bulls. I don't really see sheep being that aggressive. And really, humans have become these domesticated animals that they're just unthinking. They just go along with the status quo. They just want to be followers. They want to be law-abiding citizens. They want to reward the state with their progeny, even though they don't get anything out of it. By the way, I was supposed to be having this debate on Friday. I guess I'll present some of these arguments and see how this breeder responds to it. This is my first official time like debating an actual breeder. Well, no, not really. I've done it on Finding Gnosis' channel, but this is more official. This is a one-on-one debate. Let's just see how this goes. I don't think. Well, I'm not going to get ahead of myself, but we'll see. We'll see how things go. So, according to Schopenhauer, the vast majority of humanity is entirely incapable of abstract philosophical thought. Maybe, well, maybe 1 out of 10. I think that's being generous, but 9 out of 10 are living purely on immediate impulses. They are on autopilot. They can't even think about philosophy. They can't engage with you. If you even try to present arguments, they're just going to get defensive and just attack you. You know, they're not going to engage. They're not going to have actual responses to what you're presenting. And so, yes, they are operating on the same level as grazing cattle, as a cat or dog, as fish, as frogs, as flies. They have no ability to resist the will to life. And you may think that you can change their mind because many of these people seem intelligent. And maybe they are intelligent in other areas, but when it comes to procreation, this is their blind spot. You can't convince them. They are slaves to the will to life. They are life simps. Excuse me. They have a herd mentality. They don't care about the individual who's being sacrificed. They care about the greater good, society, civilization, their family. The individual does not matter. Who cares if you have to go to work every day, be oppressed by unjust laws, get sick, suffer heartbreak? It doesn't matter. You're an individual. What matters is the collective. They're just on a conveyor belt, just producing more life slaves. Being a life simp is not really a choice. This is how they're built. They're not capable of thinking like you. the way that they are built, well, they're slaves to the will to life. They have no capacity to resist it. They are slaves to their own biology, their hormones. Rational thought does not even enter the picture. They don't have any original opinions. Their opinions are dictated by public policy. Whatever the state wants, whatever society wants, whatever tradition dictates, that's going to be their opinion. It's how they were raised, it's how they were indoctrinated. They can't break away from it. They are addicted to conformity. They actually despise those who step out of line, those who are independent thinkers. They have a real aversion to that. Well, there's a double bind because they are conformists. They're enslaved by their own biology, and they're also enslaved by their desire for social approval. So, whatever is accepted by the masses or whatever the majority says is correct, that's what they're going to go along with. And then you couple that with their own biology. So, there is no positive reinforcement for being an anti-natalist, for going against the grain. They're terrified of isolation. They don't want to be alone. They don't want to be quiet. They don't want to think. They don't want to engage in independent thought. They would rather be sheep. They want to comply. They want to submit to the will to life. You know, these people, they can't enjoy a single moment of quiet. They have to constantly talk. They get bored easily. They don't enjoy their own company. They can't entertain themselves. They can't occupy their own time. No, they need somebody there. They need somebody there to occupy space. And the main reason is because they don't want to be confronted with themselves. They probably don't have very high self esteem. And so they need someone else to validate them, to tell them that they're a good person, to love them. To tell them that they're right, to tell them that they matter, because they can't actually produce these thoughts themselves. They need external validation. This is not based on love. Of course, they're going to say this, but before you can love anybody else, you have to start by loving yourself. And a lot of these people just don't have that. And I know people take this for granted. And in many ways, they will shame you for loving yourself and say that you're being solipsistic, you're a narcissist. No, you should love yourself. You should put yourself first. As long as you are not abusing people, as long as you're not extracting, you have every right to put yourself first. You have every right to have high self esteem and not sacrifice yourself for the greater good. This is a procreational Ponzi scheme. They can't actually self-actualize on their own. They have to self-actualize. Well, it's not even self-actual. It's they have to actualize at somebody else's expense. This is how they define themselves. I'm a mother. I'm a father. They need a constant supply of external validation. They need roles that tell them their place in society. They need to be somewhere in the hierarchy, and at the very least, within their own households, they get to be at the apex because their children are beneath them. So even if they are at the bottom in society, well, they get to be over children, which gives them some sense of self esteem. They have a child to indoctrinate, control, manipulate, maybe even abuse. I'm not saying that all parents do this, but I think in our culture, abuse is so prevalent. It's not even like it's an anomaly. It's really not. And maybe all children are not physically abused, but I think it's safe to say that in Western cultures, most parents are authoritarian. It's not so much true in other cultures, but in our culture, in America, parents lead with authoritarianism. They want to control you like a slave. They do think their children are property. So this is how the will to life works. You have these hormones. These hormones lead you to sex. Mind you, we do have the technology so that having sex does not inevitably have to lead to procreation. You can use contraception. Yes, I will stipulate that we all have, well, most of us have a drive towards sex. You can get sterilized though. I did, and I'm not even heterosexual. So I'm not sure what other people's excuses are. I'm not sure why men are ejaculating in women and then blaming them for impregnating themselves as if they had no role in this. I'm not sure why women are allowing men to ejaculate in them and producing offspring who didn't consent to this. There is a third party. Yeah, you may have a right to choose, but your child had no right to choose. Your child is the victim of your irresponsibility. The parents do the crime, the children do the time. Because of your orgasm, someone else has to suffer 80 plus years of toil, of oppression, of injustice. Well, I guess those are synonyms, but I don't, I mean, it's just so completely unjustified. It's so unjustified that you got your little orgasm and someone else has to pay. The asymmetry is starking, is glaring. It is the most stunning act of oppression and injustice that nobody ever can account for. Yes, they'll say they did you a favor. They created a life slave. They pulled you out of the void, force you to exist against your will so that you can generate value for others. They drag you into a cycle of death and misery. And of course, they want you to focus on the bright side. What about the joy? As if that balances out, as if that justifies the suffering. The joy is completely irrelevant because you were in a state of non-existence. You were pulled into a state of existence where suffering and death was inevitable. No one has a duty to give joy and pleasure to someone who doesn't exist. They do have a duty to not inflict suffering on someone without their consent. So they gambled, and they think the gamble was completely justified. Now, if everyone were to collectively stop procreating, well, all the suffering and death would end. This is the obvious conclusion, but for whatever reason, they can't get over themselves. They think that their genetics are so great. They just want to litter the planet with their genetics. I mean, this is not creating some type of supremacy. I don't think my genetics are worthy of proliferation. I'm not that arrogant to think that my genetics should be passed on to the next generation. And then there are people who have even worse genetics than me. Again, this is not me aggrandizing. I don't think any of us should procreate. I just think that it doesn't matter how bad your circumstances are, what your genetic disposition happens to be, they're going to justify it. And then, even beyond genetics, there are people who are even irresponsible when it comes to things that they could control, like smoking while pregnant, like having children and then abusing them, like not taking responsibility for a choice that you made voluntarily. Yes, they are addicted to life. They are addicted to the cycle. They can't see anything beyond the material world. And it's really disappointing for the people who claim to be religious. I thought you're I thought you're supposed to be focused on your eternal life. Why are you so attached to this world? Why are you so invested into trapping human souls into hell? I know they're going to drag you into hell, and then I guess Jesus can save you from the very hell they put you in. That makes a lot of fucking sense. And then here's another aspect of their illogic. They procreate based on their fear of their own annihilation. They don't want to die, so they procreate so I guess they can live on through their progeny. But the catch is, well, nobody actually becomes immortal. You are not your children. Your children are not you. You're going to die, and your children are both, or everybody's just going to die. So while you're trying to cheat death through procreation, you're actually giving death exactly what it wants. The Grim Reaper is coming for everybody. And you're making sure that the Grim Reaper stays employed. And of course, they do say that antinatalism is a death cult. I say that the life slaves, the life simps, that is the death cult. Now, I have another quote from Schopenhauer. If children were brought into the world by an act of pure reason alone, would the human race continue to exist? Would not a man rather have so much sympathy with the coming generation as to spare it the burden of existence? I think that is the quote that most people are familiar with from Schopenhauer. Of course, it's not done out of reason, and they'll try to justify it by saying that they're doing it out of love. I've talked about love before. Well, obviously, you can't love someone who doesn't exist. So, um, I don't know if you're saying you love your partner so much that you decided to be so reckless, or you love yourself so much that you decided to create a mini me. I don't know. I don't know where the love comes in. So, creating a life slave is supposed to be beautiful. It's supposed to cement your relationship to your partner. Of course, these relationships don't last. You have children, then you separate. You're raising children in broken homes. I thought this was about love, though. What about all the dysfunction that ensues after procreation? What about the abuse of the children, the neglect? What about fighting over custody, not wanting to pay child support? All the chaos, all the entropy. Yes, they're so utterly determined to give the will to life exactly what it wants. They want to simp. They don't want to resist their own biological urges. Again, I'm not saying they can't have sex, but they can at least use contraception or get sterilized like I did. Then they want to make their appeals to tradition. People have been having children since the beginning of history. You must be arrogant for thinking that you know better. You must be arrogant for being able to respond to objective facts that, yes, if I procreate, my child is going to suffer and die. There is no way to avoid it. Yes, you can try to mitigate it, but you ultimately don't have any control over it. Yes, I am arrogant. Yes, I do think I deserve better. I think everybody deserves better. Everybody deserves to not suffer and die. And who are you to say otherwise? What gives you the right to force someone who didn't consent to suffer and die? If you want to appeal to tradition, if you want to make appeals to the greater good, there's a lot of injustices that happened in the past that were justified along the lines of the greater good. Slavery, the oppression of women. So when you make appeals to tradition, what you're basically saying is that your own logic should yield to the dead, that the dead should control the living. because that's the way it was done in the past. That's the way things should continue in the future. The foolish should rule over the wise. And basically, we're just slaves to happenstance. It just happened. I just had sex. I just had a baby. I just didn't think about using a condom. It just is what it is. There was nothing that could be done to change it. We're not going to pretend that it wasn't a deliberate choice. It wasn't a deliberate choice to force someone to suffer and die. That you actually did have control over it. You do live in a civilized society. You do have access to contraception. You do have a choice. Well, this is what they tell me, that I chose to be gay. So if I chose to be gay, then you chose to be straight. You chose to be straight. You chose to have sex with the opposite members of the opposite sex. And as a result of your sexual preference, someone else has to suffer and die. The entitlement is absolutely disgusting. The entitlement that you think that just because you want the joys of parenting, that somebody else should have to suffer and die. That you are entitled to a human being. You want to constrict someone to a life of drudgery to make yourself happy. And of course, you're going to say that you did your best. You tried to give your child a good life. If they end up having a life of drudgery, so what? At least I tried. I did everything that I could to protect my children. You didn't just create a child, you created a full human being who was going to have to navigate this life and spend most of his or her time as an adult. You have no control over it. And for you to think otherwise is arrogant. You're not God. Yes, you may have God-like power to create a life, but well, after that, then you become a slave. You're a slave to life just like everybody else. You don't have any control over circumstances. Most of these circumstances are based in nature or they're systemic. It's just so funny. It's just so funny how when tragedy falls on people, they act like they're so surprised because they're so focused on the positive. They don't think about the potential for things going to shit when they lose their jobs, when the economy goes in the toilet. It's just so many examples of things that have happened in the past. Maybe you think they were not foreseeable, but that's because you were focusing on the positive. The writing is usually on the wall. I don't think anything is unforeseeable. I don't think slavery was unforeseeable. I don't think the Holocaust was unforeseeable. I don't think war is unforeseeable. I don't think any of this shit's unforeseeable. You're taking all these risks anytime you procreate, and it's completely unjustified. And I don't know how giving into nature, giving into biology, not thinking, I don't know how that is an accomplishment. I don't know why that should be celebrated as if because you did exactly what cats and dogs do, you should be congratulated. No, I would think deliberating about your own choices and making rational choices should be the accomplishment. That resisting your biological urges is the accomplishment, not giving into it. And then they procreation as a noble sacrifice, or overcoming adversity is somehow noble. It's just a whole fetish about noble suffering. You're a hero because you conscripted a child to suffer and die. You should just cope, get over it, call 988, figure out how you're going to navigate your involuntary existence. You're like a hamster on a wheel. Everything was predestined. There was nothing you could do about it. You're no different than bacteria. You're no different than a rodent. You have no ability to think. You have no control over your actions. The refusal to procreate is the only real rebellion available to human beings. Other animals don't have this ability. They have no ability to resist their biological impulses. Antinatalism is the only fuck you to existence, to suffering and death, to the will to life. You may want to struggle, you may want to die, but you don't have the right to force someone else to do it. You don't have anyone else, you don't have the right to force someone else to suffer and die, to serve as a means to your ends. Because you think the state deserves children and you are afraid of demographic collapse, because you want to create a legacy, because you need to please your partner. Now, if you were to reach out to the void, they do talk about this, what do you call it? The soul contract, that our souls consented to being brought into existence. If you could reach out to the void and actually communicate with the soul, I'm not sure that we actually have souls, not in the way that they're using it. If you could reach out into the void and communicate with this phantom soul and ask, hey, would you like to come down into the material world and pay taxes, get your heart broken, get sick, age and decline, work 40 hours a week, get pulled over by road pirates, have your rights deprived, be owned by the state because you're not going to actually own your life. You're going to be trapped. You're not going to have any ability to opt out. I don't think many people would consent to that. I think most of us would rather be left in the void. But now that you're here, you have to justify it, because now that you're here, you fear your own annihilation. It's inevitable, but you have to defend it anyway. Delay the inevitable. Try to make the most out of a shitty situation. Try to find whatever happiness you can get out of this. And once you do it, I guess you don't have any choice but to try to rationalize it. You're not going to admit that you did anything wrong. You're just going to double down. Society said that it was the right choice. And of course, up until the point that you were actually confronted by an antinatalist, you never considered this position. And even after you were confronted with this position, you decided to do it anyway because, well, you wanted a child, you wanted somebody to validate you, you wanted validation from your partner, Even on my father's deathbed, he was still trying to convince me to give him some grandchildren. So his final act was to try to convince me to force another human being to suffer and die. He was a life simp until the very end. Even as life was absolutely destroying him and his body was wasting away, well, he was still addicted to the struggle. Just couldn't let go. He still had to cling on. Well, gosh, I don't want to disparage, but I think my father was very typical of most people. So I use him as an example because this is a real person I can actually point to. He was terrified of dying and he thought he could live through his progeny. No, you don't get to live through me. I am not you. I have my own unique experience. I'm not part of the herd. I am an individual. You're gone. I'm still here suffering and dying. I didn't consent then and I don't consent now. You may have a desire to be a lamb put to slaughter. You may want to be a sacrificial animal for the state. I do not. All right, let's go through some of these comments. I've already addressed this first one. Um, I'm not even going to read that, but I'll just post it for other people to read. Simp used to originally mean a person showing excessive admiration for another person, and in a regular case, a man excessively bowing down to some woman or being considered as such, supposedly. Right. Most humans have been domesticated excessively, physically, socially, intellectually, and philosophically, religious wise, and more, and now insolently envy you for not falling for that nonsense as much. Exactly. Hey, Chickpea. Um, we need to catch up. Maybe I'll do. Well, I have a debate on Friday, but maybe I don't know. I don't know when I'll do another panel, but we need to catch up. Yes, it's not as if they have already conscripted you to exist against your will, and then once they have you, it's not as if they actually appreciate it. That okay, well, you have a child with 10 fingers and 10 toes. This child didn't ask to be here. Maybe I can actually be good to this child now that I have imposed existence on them. No, they have all this entitlement about what you should be. They just want to abuse you. They just want to control you, contort you to meet their expectations. Oh yeah, well, yeah, I do my live streams randomly, so um, I'll just do it whenever time permits. I don't really set a schedule. By the way, Soccer Star is the one who gave me this term life simp because I had never heard it before. Life simps want to procreate as a coping mechanism for their own mortality, but not breeding archive the same exact results. Hey, Fatima. The government retains complete authority over our lives. Slavery never ended. Exactly. I'm so glad somebody gets it. You are a fucking slave. You're not a chattel slave. You're a life slave, and the government owns you. It's just transitioned from marginalized groups to absolutely every. Right. That's what the 14th Amendment did. Now it's not just us being slaves. Now everybody's a damn slave. The state literally owns you through the damn 14th Amendment. Even police are slaves to their system they enforce. Right. The shit is so hierarchical that there's only focusing on the people beneath them. They're not focusing on their own oppression. Let me put this up here. In fact, let me I need to I need to figure out how I'm going to use this quote because this is so good. Life abolitionism is the only movement that hasn't been corrupted by human nature's desire to form hierarchical structures. Right. Thank you so much. Thank you for actually appreciating the potential of this philosophy. I really need to bookmark this quote because this is so good. It really does demonstrate the importance of this philosophy. And it's not me tooting my own horn. I I wish somebody else would have come up with this so that there's probably a better person who could market this. I'm not really a good people person. I'm really not. I'm not really a front person. I wish Benatar or somebody else had already done this. I feel like antinatalism is really just it's really just a starting point, but it just doesn't go far enough. It just doesn't. I would be slightly more sympathetic to natalists if May was universally available. Yes, yes, exactly. You are so right. How they hold you hostage just makes it that much more despicable than it already is. You are so right. We need to get you up here one of these days, and not right now because I don't have any time. But yes, I would love to hear your perspective. Hi, Pastor D. Hi, Pastor D. Like I said, we need to do a panel discussion. I need to think of a good topic to get everybody up here. You know what? Yeah, it is slavery because if you understand when it comes to procreation, you're trying to set a goal, or you don't want any kids right now. Someone is telling you to do it. Right. That is selfish and us controlling another person go on what they want to do for themselves. And if they want to stay selfish, let them, hey, they're saving money. Right. That's the difference between being an anti-natalist and being child free. If you want to be child free, I think the child free arguments are more compelling because people are selfish. They will be persuaded by their desire to buy motorcycles and video games and eat Fruit Loops more than considering the well-being of a potential child. They don't give a shit about that. So, you know what? That's the angle. We need to really focus on the child-free arguments more than antinatalism. How it actually benefits them to be child-free than how then rather, I mean, it's just more compelling than trying to get them to focus on saving their potential children from suffering and death. They don't care about that. I think it's also manipulation to a person that really wants to save their money and really want to have a peace of mind, of space right now, and they don't want to get tied down. Right, we have all these women on TikToks lamenting their decision to procreate. We have all these parents of children with special needs. And all these people, this is the part you don't hear. You have all these people regretting their decision to procreate. There was a woman on my channel, which I'm not going to name, and somebody was just recently like trying to shame her for having children. No, she didn't want to have children. She got pressured into it. She had children for a man, and now she would not. If she had a choice, she would not do that. Make that same mistake again. And I'm sure she does love her children now that they're here, but she did not want to have children. So I do have compassion for those who have children. It is never too late to become an antinatalist. Own up to your folly, try to address it as best as you can, and move on and own up to it. Exactly. They're unplanned. So what I don't understand is for a person that wants to tell another person to have kids, why don't they have kids for themselves and leave that other person alone? I mean, they're fertile. Well, because they want validation. I had a friend. I actually went to undergrad with her and then law school. And she, by the way, she flunked out because of the demand of being a mother. Anyway, y'all don't know who she is, so it doesn't matter. But when I would be on the phone with her, she would always be in the background with her kids, and because her kids were so bad, that you could hear them just. Let me correct myself. There's no such thing as a bad child. There's only bad parents. So if her kids were misbehaved, it's because of her. But she would always say, "Don't have kids." She would always tell me that, "Don't have kids," and then she went on to have 3 more kids. This woman did not use birth control. She was on her third man. And she could get men so easily, even with all of her damn kids. She had no problem getting a man. Every time her last name would change so frequently. I don't know what her last name is right now because I haven't talked to her in a very long time. But she had no problem getting a man, and she always was turning up, getting pregnant. I could never keep track of how many kids she had. And not all people are fertile. I think that's another form of grape in the mind of controlling another person or what they can do. Well, it's a form of ableism. They make all these assumptions. One manipulating the man to say you're selfish for not wanting to for not having kids because you are a man and you need to dominate women, and women have to have no say when they really want to trust men and having children. Well, especially when you're young because you don't know any better and your family is leading you astray. I think once you have been around the block a little bit longer and you got some education, then maybe you will actually listen to your own judgment. But yeah, if you're a young woman, you probably are extremely impressionable. Christian nationalism is the proxy being used to fight the rise in society walking away from procreation. Yes, yes, I agree. Into having children with them when they're ready, because the woman and the man, you are really sure the brain together right now in these days and times, and one of the other are crazy. All right, I think this is the last comment. I'm about to get out of here. They really don't like each other because that's not what they really want together. They're just impressing others just because they're going through this process to get others off their backs. All right, y'all. I gotta get out of here, but you all have a good night, and I hope we can do another panel discussion soon.